West here, reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags and we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania. Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine.
Virginia Tech.
Tucson.
Aurora.
Fort Hood. Oak Creek.
Newtown.
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 How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, it looks like President Obama broke the Republican Party. We wake up this morning, Friday, October 9th, with no speaker, no leader, just chaos and rumors flying around about why he stepped down, what's going to happen next, who's going to take over. Is there even a Republican Party anymore? Is there a unified, cohesive opposition party? That's the question this morning. Welcome to the Bill Press Show. I'm Igor Volsky of ThinkProgress, sitting in for Bill Press on What's a Big News Friday morning.
What a Friday. What a Friday.
We were just planning the show on Thursday, thinking, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And all of a sudden, news breaks that the man who was going to just walk in and succeed John Boehner, Kevin McCarthy, the so-called young gun from California who's been in Congress since 2006. And in 2010, when all the Tea Party folks came on board, put in so much work in recruiting those candidates, into training those candidates, into making sure they had the money they needed to succeed in that 2010 midterm wave election. Well, all those folks turned their back on Mr. McCarthy. He walked away, and now who knows what's going to happen? We're going to try to find out.
It's so rare in #ThisTown that news actually happens that we don't see it coming, right? Unless it's like a tragedy or an accident or something like that. It's political news rarely ever sneaks up because, they want to make sure that the story is told their way. So even the John Boehner stepping down last week or whenever it was, wasn't the biggest surprise in the world because he had sort of hinted that he was just getting fed up with the speakership. And the McCarthy thing was just a total haymaker. Nobody saw that coming.
I wonder two things. One, did McCarthy seed the seeds here of his own destruction by recruiting people in 2010 who believed that government doesn't have to function, that we can stop spending money, that we can stop paying for the debt ceiling, that we can stop funding the government if we don't get what we want? Because these are the seeds here of the discontent, of the great schism in the Republican Party. Republicans are divided because some members really want to govern. They understand that the House includes Democrats, that there's a Democratic president, that to get something done, you need to reach across the aisle. You need to work with Democrats. You need to work with this administration. That's how you move the country forward. And then there's about 30 or 40 members, a minority to be sure, but clearly enough to kind of screw things up, who say, no. If we don't get our way, if we don't repeal Obamacare, if we don't take all the Planned Parenthood money out of government spending, we're going to shut down the government. We're going to stop funding highway construction, and we're going to forget about the debt ceiling. Screw the credit rating. Who cares? That's the great divide. And in some ways, Kevin McCarthy is responsible for it. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Your calls on this. Joined, of course, as always, by the wonderful Bill Press team, Peter Ogburn.
Hi, Igor.
Here in studio. Good morning.
Good to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Absolutely.
Can we discuss just very quickly your pre-show routine?
Well, this morning I did some, just usual jumping jacks.
Just like Bill does.
Just like Bill does. Typical push-ups.
Some push-ups.
Some push-ups like Bill does. Didn't have time for the squats. That's during the break.
Okay, I can't.
Planking?
I can't wait.
Planking, it's...
We've got like a 4-minute break coming up.
It's not enough movement.
You can plank for that whole thing.
Yeah.
If you'd like.
I'll do it, okay.
I
It's on.
swear I nearly vomited watching you do that just because I'm so hungover right now. So
Well, I'm preparing for
if
the
you're going to
sausage.
start doing exercise again, just make sure I'm not
I'll
looking.
warn you. I'll tell you
Just
to
let
leave.
me know.
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm preparing for the sausage eating that we're doing in what is the next hour.
The next hour.
In the next hour, we're
Jaws is
speaking-
going to be here.
That's right. Competitive eater, Mr. Joey Chestnut, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Joey Chestnut.
That's the one.
8-time Nathan's Hot Dog winner, lost his 9th title to some chump, some 23-year-old chump. We're going to talk to him. He probably still has feelings about
I can't
that.
wait to talk to
That
him.
was back in July.
Yeah.
All right, James Benson here on the board.
Mr. James
Good morning.
Benson.
Good morning,
Happy Friday.
James.
Happy Friday.
And Ray Rogers taking your calls, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Monty Kessler. I'm so sorry. I wrote it wrong here, Monty. I'm sorry. Don't turn the cameras off. Running our video cameras so you can see us on Talker TV. On Dish. Is Dish a thing?
Dish Network, Direct TV,
Direct
Dish,
TV.
you got it.
And of course, you're also listening to us on the iHeartRadio app, on the TuneIn app using the Progressive Voices channel, and on your very favorite progressive radio station. There was a time in America where you could say, even let's go to Dennis Hastert. I stand with Denny Hastert. You knew you were a Republican. Or, I stand with Newt Gingrich. You knew you were a Republican. This time, there's all these kinds of leaders, even if they have a caretaker, or if I don't know, Jason Chaffetz, the congressman from Utah who's running. You say, I stand for Chaffetz. What does that mean? That doesn't mean you're a Republican. That means you're part of some small faction of Republicans. There's all these other folks who have a whole different kind of mind game about what should be done, how it should be done, and the whole thing is a real mess. And I wonder that when this news first came out, I asked myself, would we be seeing this if we had a President John Edwards? Because I'll say this. Yes, the roots of the great Republican divide between the conservatives who don't want to spend any money and shut government down and those who want to try to get something done began before the 2008 election with Bush's overspending and some of the excesses that Republicans just weren't happy with. But it's completely undeniable that it roared full speed ahead when President Obama was elected. And he started spending money through the stimulus. He passed the Affordable Care Act, Wall Street reform. And these folks weren't just against these ideas, against those bills. They wanted to repeal them, and they believed that they would kill your grandmother, they would suck all the money out of the economy, they would destroy all these jobs. Literally,
we're putting out there the death panel.
Literally. And Republicans made a decision right after the Obama inauguration that they were going to pursue this path, that they were going to orient themselves and appeal to the craziest elements of the Republican Party. And so those 30, 40 Republicans who Kevin McCarthy couldn't get ran their campaigns on that kind of crazy. Those races weren't run on some logical, reasoned debate about why Obamacare is bad policy and why instead of the Cadillac tax, we must, have some other kind of provision to control healthcare savings. No, it was ran on the fact that if you pass Obamacare, you're going to have socialism in America, the insurance industry is going to crumble, and your grandmother is going to die the following day. That was the campaign, and that was a political decision made by Republican leaders. And after 7 years of this crazy, it's not surprising that not only do you have a Republican Party that's in complete disarray because the folks who rode into town on those kinds of notions and those kinds of beliefs have no desire to govern at all. They just want to oppose everything Obama does, repeal everything Obama does, and, not work with Obama. So you have them, and then on the presidential race, my God, you have Donald Trump, Carly Fiorina, wait till we get to Ben Carson this week. I mean, just crazy, crazy stuff, and they only have themselves to blame. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Tom from Boston, good morning.
Good morning, Igor. How are you?
Good.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Pete, how you doing?
Good, man. What's happening?
Not much. About the Republican Party, I think it's great for the American worker that the Republican Party is in such disarray. And there's an old saying, give them enough of rope and they'll hang themselves. And that's what I think they've done.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Thank you, Tom. We'll see what rises from the ashes. What's that saying? Know the enemy, this idea that you don't know what's coming, so you might as well kind of hold on to the enemy you have because the enemy of the future might be a lot worse. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, it is clear that the chickens, as they say, have come home to roost.
Yeah.
As you pointed out. I mean, when you build your ideology on just not governing, but just winning battles, right? Which is what this is, right? We want to beat Obama. We want to defeat Obamacare. We want to, repeal Obamacare. We want to defeat this Iran bill. And there's a history here of not actually offering something else up. It's just petty, just winning for the sake of winning.
There's no expectations that you have ideas.
Right.
The expectations are rhetoric. How hot is your rhetoric? And the hotter your rhetoric, the more popular you are. And it's not just, Republicans who are responsible. We have to, I think, accept that there's outside forces. There's technology.
Yeah, sure.
There's the ability for people like Ted Cruz, a freshman senator, to leverage Twitter and the way that the political media is now aligned with, all these independent conservative channels to appeal to kind of the, most hardcore of his supporters, right?
That's a nice way to put it.
It's early.
Yeah.
And all, so, there's kind of a whole host of factors that contribute to where Republicans are today. But I'll also say this. I think Democrats have a very big responsibility. There's this urge to celebrate disarray and to, obviously if the Republican Party is down, it's good for Democrats politically in some way. But they have a responsibility because they're going to need, it looks like, Republicans are going to need Democratic support to approve the next speaker. There might not be enough votes, that 218, to get a Republican with just Republican votes. And so Democrats have a real opportunity. They have an opportunity to say, we'll deliver the additional votes. We'll confirm a conservative speaker. But that individual, he or she, must commit to putting a highway bill on the floor, to putting a debt ceiling increase on the floor, to putting a funding bill, a clean funding bill on the floor, to putting an immigration bill on the floor, to putting a guns bill on the floor. And that's a small ask. The ask is, put issues in front of the people's house that the people of this country want to vote on.
Isn't that funny how low the bar is right now?
That's how low the bar is. Let's just vote on stuff
not pass it,
and see what
let's
happens.
Vote. Yeah.
Let's throw away the Hastert rule, the House rule that says we must only vote on things that a majority of Republicans agree upon. Throw that out. That's not working. You're too in disarray for that. You can't even agree amongst yourselves. But let's vote on real initiatives that Americans care about and that the whole House cares about. And that's the other problem. The perspective here is so narrow. The Speaker of the House isn't the Speaker of the Republicans. That is the House Majority Leader. The Speaker of the House speaks for all of the members of the House. And even though Republicans have the highest majority, largest majority since the 1920s, A, they're squandering it, and B, there's a lot of Democrats still in there. And it's the job of the Speaker to make sure that he presents the priorities of the House and that priorities of the entire electorate, all the voters who put all the members there, that's represented. I mean, it's fairly easy. It's fairly simple. How do you get Washington moving again? What do you do? How do we get things done? Put bills on the floor of the House. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. It's a real question, though. Is the Republican Party, as we knew it on Thursday, alive today on Friday? Or is there always going to be this divide between very conservative members who just want to talk, and find the purest possible solution to every problem, and the folks who maybe want to compromise and get something done? Your calls, 866-557-7377. I'm Igor Volsky. We'll be right back.
Like politics? Then like The Bill Press Show on Facebook. This is The Bill Press Show.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, Free Speech TV world, it's Mama and the Mooks here at the Stephanie Miller Show.
Hello. Good morning.
You know, Seinfeld was about nothing. I think the Stephanie Miller Show is about everything.
A little bit everything.
Yeah, a little
It's
bit.
kind of everything like thrown into a blender and we hit frappe.
Right.
With wine poured in.
Right. Senators, fart jokes, politics, pop culture, entertainment.
Drinking.
Drinking. Random stray thoughts. It's what all the hip kids are talking about.
Yep.
We have the smartest, funniest people in the country on this show, do we not?
We absolutely do.
Right?
And our sexy liberal army of callers call in every day to tell us all about it.
There you go. And some right-wingers that Travis particularly enjoys talking to.
They're my favorites.
Okay. You can watch us every weekday from 9 to noon Eastern or 6 to 9 Pacific, which is really early. But we still, we try to, we're still pulling in people like Rob Reiner, Lily Tomlin, Frangela, you name it. You can only get it here at the Stephanie Miller Show. Mama, Mooks, fancy celebrities.
And everything.
And fart jokes.
Free Speech TV.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
25 minutes after the hour, The Bill Press Show for this Friday, October 9th, 2015, as we try to pick up the pieces of a speakerless house of no leader in sight. What does it mean for the Republican Party? Is there still such a thing as a Republican Party, or are there 2 or 3 different parties? And what does it mean for the big battles ahead, the highway bill, the debt ceiling increase, funding the government? Does this make the likelihood of crisis so much more possible? So much more likely?
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that there's a chance that Republicans, this might be sort of a teachable moment for them? Like if they go through a little bit of time here with chaos. Because let's be clear, I mean, it's chaos right now. I mean, they don't have a speaker or at all, and any of the people who are maybe capable enough to pull that job off, they don't want it. You know?
They don't want it. I mean, some people do. Jason Chaffetz, who's was running against Kevin McCarthy, is one of 2 people in the race. There's going to be more in the days ahead. Took to the microphones yesterday after Kevin McCarthy announced what's going on and admitted this very point that the party is, in fact, in chaos.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot of internal fracturing that's happened, and we need to figure out a way to unite the party. That's what Kevin McCarthy wants to do. That's what I want to do, and I think that's what John Boehner wants to do.
Now, the question, just before you say something, Peter, the question is how and who. Right. Is it, we're told that the magic man to do this is Paul Ryan.
Paul Ryan.
I haven't seen any leadership skill that proves to me that he's able to take 2 completely divided factions who don't like each other, who view each other, the moderate Republicans view these 30 or 40 Freedom Caucus members as crazy people who should not be in government, and the crazy people who should not be in government view the moderate folks as rhinos who don't understand the true spirit of the American people. How do you bridge those 2 things together when 30 to 40 members of your own party came to D.C. to do nothing, to stop everything in its tracks until Obama, converts to, the Pat Buchanan or whoever school of politics and agrees with them on everything? I mean, it's completely impossible. And I don't care if you're Paul Ryan or Newt Gingrich or, Pope Francis, you're not going to be able to unite those 2 factions, and why we're being told that Paul Ryan is as always, Paul Ryan is the golden child. He can do anything. He lost, by the way, in 2012. I don't know if you remember.
He doesn't want the job.
The question isn't who's right for the job. The question is this even a manageable job? Man, imagine that job interview. Here's what you have to do. Good luck. All right, 28 minutes after the hour. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I am your toilet, so how do you do? I take away your wee and the odd number 2. For a quiet moment, I'll always be there, bringing you troubles. You don't even have to care. Oh, think about the things you put me through. Things you put me through that I've been through you. Stuff from your body I'll happily take, liquid or solid, whatever you make. When you think of all the things that I do, it's time to say thanks to your Lou. If I wasn't there anymore, you can only imagine disaster. I am a lifesaver, and that is not a lie. Where I don't exist, thousands die. So next time you have to do a poo or a wee, thank the sanitary saints that you have me. your loo. La 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 la. La 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 la. It's time to say thank you to your loo.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour. Igor Volsky here for Bill Press on this October 9th, 2015. And while we were dissecting the speakerless Congress, some news across the wires, Peter.
Yes, indeed. It's another day, which means it's another shooting on a school campus. Northern Arizona University's Flagstaff campus reports that there was an active shooter earlier this morning. 4 victims total, 1 killed, 3 wounded. The shooter is in custody. The situation has been stabilized and the campus is not on lockdown. But a fatal shooting early this morning at Northern Arizona University's Flagstaff campus.
Yeah, we're going to talk next hour with Tim Daly, who's the Director for Campaigns, Guns, and Crime at the Center for American Progress, where I also work, because it feels like, at least if you read the reports, that there is some renewed momentum for gun safety legislation, whether that be through the legislative route or through administrative action. The president, after Newtown, issued 23 executive orders dealing with gun safety. And reporting suggests that after this past shooting in Oregon, that he's re-examining some of the other potential acts that he can implement unilaterally because, of course, Congress isn't going to do anything, and it's in the president's hands in some respects. And so some of the actions that they thought the first time around might be in a bit of a gray area may get now a new re-examination in light of all of this. But, one thing I should just say that we don't often hear about is the struggle that you hear happen in news organizations, and I think ThinkProgress, of course, and elsewhere, is, how much of your reporting do you devote to the perpetrator of these acts? Do you say this person's name? Do you give a lot of biographical details? Because there is a real copycat effect that does kick in some of these cases. And can you taper that down by by reporting on these stories in certain ways. But for all of us in newsrooms across the country, I mean, these kinds of stories fit a familiar pattern. We know exactly what to do. We know exactly how the details are going to play out and leak out, and what kind of stories we write when. And it's, it's tragic. It's tragic in its own right, but in the jobs that we're in, reporting it gives it a whole new lens of, I think, kind of difficulty and sorrow in many respects.
Yeah.
But, one person who had a funny response to school shootings among the GOP field and had a funny response to a whole lot of things is Ben Carson, who's the number two Republican presidential candidate. He said after Oregon that, hey, if he was there, he'd charge the gunman and take action, prevent it from happening.
He would
do something.
He had one of those knee-jerk reactions to gun control that I've ever seen a politician have. In the course of the week, he talked about how he would storm a gunman and he would rally the people around him to help him storm an active shooter, which is a stretch. He said that whatever pictures we see of dead children who have been killed by guns, that's not as sad as the thought of the Second Amendment being trampled on. He said that if the Jews had been armed, the Holocaust would not have happened.
If only we had guns.
That is his solution to the Holocaust. That if the Jews had guns, the Holocaust would have happened. I'm not exaggerating. That's what he said. He said that when someone attempted to rob him in a restaurant in Baltimore, someone put a gun in his ribs, and he said, hey, I think you want the guy behind the cash register, not me. That's his solution for getting out of this. He also said that by storming attackers, that sends a message that you can't do this. Case in point, those guys that stormed the attacker on 9/11, Todd Beamer and the group of people that put down the plane in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, they stormed that attacker. So storming the shooter works. Yeah, you haven't seen attackers hijackers since then, have you, Igor? You haven't thought of that, have you?
Well, what we're trying to say is that if you're a Ben Carson voter, please call us 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. And it's not just crazy opinions, crazy rhetoric. He also unveiled or, kind of stepped into it yesterday when discussing kind of very basic, fundamental questions of policy. The debt ceiling, here he is yesterday with Kai Ryssdal on Marketplace, trying to answer the question, would he sign legislation increasing the nation's borrowing limit, its debt ceiling?
Should the Congress then and the president not raise the debt limit? Should we default on our debt?
Let me put it this way. If I were the president, I would not sign an increased budget. Absolutely would not do it. They would have to find a place to cut.
Wait. So the debt ceiling is not a budget. The debt ceiling is how much the nation can borrow to continue paying its bills. And you increase the debt ceiling to pay for debt you already incurred. Kai Ryssdal says,
to be clear, it's increasing the debt limit, not the budget. But I want to make sure I understand you. You'd let the United States default rather than raise the debt limit.
No, I would provide kind of leadership that says, get on the stick, guys, and stop messing around. And cut where you need to cut because we're not raising any spending limits, period.
I don't know what
get on the stick.
Get on the
stick
means.
Stick, guys. We got to work. But he said the type of that he would provide the type of leadership to make people. Does he inspire you on any level? Hey guys, we got to get off the stick here. We need to really work to get this budget done. That's what I'm telling you to do. There's no enthusiasm or charisma to this guy at all.
This is why I'm saying, is there a Republican Party these days? Because if that's the leadership, if that's the number two guy
talking about?
In a field of governors and senators who have real experience doing real things with real accomplishments. I mean, Rick Perry, 12 years as governor of Texas?
Yeah.
Scott Walker. won election after election, actually accomplished big conservative goals, they had to drop out because people like Ben Carson, who doesn't know what the debt ceiling is, who thinks you can prevent the Holocaust with a couple of handguns, and who wants to storm shooters to stop school shootings, is surging among the party. I mean, who are you nourishing as your constituency that's the situation you're in? Who are you speaking to? Who are you inspiring? Certainly not the overwhelming majority of Americans, even more conservative, more moderate Americans who are rational, who, 10, 20 years ago would have never stood for this kind of garbage, and any candidate who said things like that would be thrown out. But today, because you feed that crazy, because you feed that machine, that's what you get. And you know what Reince Priebus and RNC and everybody else who thought, this time around, if we just have less debates, we're going to be better off. No. You would be better off if you actually got things done, if you cut the rhetoric, and if you look like a party that wanted to govern. Then you would have a dialogue with actual voters who wanted and yearned for policy prescriptions. We could have an actual conversation about how to set the country on track. But instead, we get this garbage with Trump, with Carson, with Fiorina. Garbage rhetoric. You ask Fiorina, what would you do about the debt ceiling? You'd get the same freaking response.
Yeah.
The first thing you have to do is understand how the economy works. What's your plan? I understand how the economy works. The president doesn't dig some stupid Hillary dig. That's all it is. Yes. I mean, it's literally a script. There's no solutions and there's no ideas. I mean, is there a policy shop in the Fiorina campaign? You go to the website, there's nothing. It's just empty space, blank space. Taylor Swift, just blank space all over these guys because there's no need for anything. As long as you have a good zinger, that's all she proved at the last debate that all you need is a good zinger, and Republicans are crazy.
Yes, yes.
She's surging. She's raising all kinds of money because she had a really good dig. How do you lead a country with digs? How do you lead a country with zingers? How do you even accomplish everything Republicans want to accomplish of lowering the deficit and getting health care that's market-based and, killing Assad and putting Putin in his place with the zingers? How do you do any of that? I mean, you got to have ideas. It's crazy to me that you'd be running for president. We're going to be having a debt ceiling debate on November 5th. When we need to increase the debt ceiling. We've had that debate like time and time again during the Obama administration, and you still don't know. You still don't know what the debt ceiling is. You can't answer a simple question from Kai Ryssdal. It's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable. Every time I'm still surprised. I'm still surprised that this is what's happening in America today. This is the conversation we're having. And if we get a crazy person in speakership, it's going to be like even...
I'm a little scared.
I don't even know. I don't even know what to do.
I'm terrified.
I mean, are we going to sit here in 3 weeks and play quotes from, Dan Webster or whoever they're going to put up there? And just go insane? Just go crazy? I mean, is that what it's going to come down to? I don't know. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. We're going to speak with Tim Mack, senior congressional correspondent for the Daily Beast, about this McCarthy crisis. Maybe he can talk me down. Stay with us.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
How I've been affected by gun violence over the years is through deaths of friends and family members and associates.
When I was 5 years old, I was held at gunpoint in a home invasion.
I've gone to the juvenile detention centers and I've met dozens of young kids, babies really, who have been affected by gun violence.
Directly, I've lost a few friends, but I think why this touches my heart is having children of my own
You know, I've been at parties where, you know, I had just left the party and, you know, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, you know, I heard that, you know, somebody got shot and didn't make it.
There are a lot of people benefiting off of our pain, and it's time we do something.
I'm here to unload my investment because I think that it's important that we start kind of seeing where our money is going.
It's time to go to your financial advisor and demand that there are no gun investments in your 401k.
Even if you don't have investments, you can still help spread the word.
This is something everyone can do.
So if you push your people that have 401ks, it might be your grandma, it might be your cousin, this effort can make a big impact.
I'm unloading for my loved ones that I lost.
I'm unloading for my 18-year-old self.
I'm unloading my 401k for the future of my children.
I'm unloading.
I'm unloading
for my family and their future.
I'm unloading so that my daughter can grow up in a safe, loving world.
Unload and join the movement.
Use hashtag I'm unloading to pledge your support for gun-free investing.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 48 minutes after the hour, Igor Volsky here for Bill Press on this Friday, October 9th, 2015. Tim Mack is the senior congressional correspondent for the Daily Beast. He's going to help us understand what went wrong with McBainer or McCarthy Gate or whatever you're calling it these days. Good morning, Tim.
Hey, good morning.
Let's get right to the bottom of this. Why is he stepping down? There's all of these other rumors that there are some personal matters that he was threatened with, an email chain that was sent out by a prominent conservative emailer threatening to expose some questionable behavior, let's say, on McCarthy's part. How much truth does that hold, that accusation that there's other personal questions that led him to drop out of the speakership race?
Well, these rumors have been circulating Capitol Hill for quite some time. Now, I don't have anything to substantiate those rumors, and neither apparently do any media outlets yet. I mean, I think what is out there so far is just that they exist, and that McCarthy was threatened with being exposed before he made the decision to pull his name out of the speaker's race. There's no substantiation here in the sense that no one has hard evidence that these rumors can be proven. Now, did they contribute to McCarthy's downfall? It's hard to see what else the answer could be to that question. McCarthy himself said, look, he couldn't unify the Republican conference. That may be true, but it seems like you would at least want to take a vote from the Republican conference before you sit down. It's just a very puzzling turn of events.
Yeah, it was very strange. I don't understand why I really want 247 votes, not 220 to win means. Who cares, number one. And number two, when he very abruptly said he's not running, because that morning, right, he was still a candidate. Then a couple of hours later, he said he's not running. Why did John Boehner call off the election? Why not go ahead and have the election in a transparent way, and maybe nobody would have gotten 217 votes, but this kind of shady practice of, oh, McCarthy's not running, my guy's not running, election's off, seems a little strange to me.
Well, I think that there had to be broad consensus in the conference to kind of postpone. That is that with McCarthy out and he was the favorite to win, it was only fair to see if other people wanted to throw their head in the ring. And in due time, I think the Republican Congress will obviously pick another candidate for Speaker. Boehner was just asking for a little time to allow the logistics to work.
All right, well, let's go through some of the options here of what can happen next. Boehner can stay on for certainly longer than he wanted to. We could have one of the two candidates we now know about, Jason Chaffetz from Utah, Daniel Webster from Florida. There could be somebody else, some kind of quiet member who could rise up in the style of Denny Hastert. Maybe they'll convince Paul Ryan to give this a shot. How do you see this playing out? Or what's the most likely scenario?
It has been a very strange and confusing last 24 hours. There is definitely a campaign to get Paul Ryan, against his will, conscript him into the Speaker's race. And we have a story up on the Daily Beast this morning about just that, about how there is a large group of Paul Ryan allies and friends who are insisting on dragging him into this, even though he wants nothing to do with the Speaker's chair. That is something to watch over the next day. Congressman Lynn Westmoreland might jump into the race. I think Jason Chaffetz, as someone who had already been in the race, almost symbolically, it does have an edge over other people just by virtue of being the last man standing.
Let me ask you, what are the qualities that they're looking for? Like, what does this person need to have to unite this caucus?
Broad appeal. Essentially an ability to get the House Freedom Caucus, the most conservative members of the Republican Party, to trust him, and to get people from what's called the Tuesday Group, the moderate conservatives in the Republican Party, to trust him. If you can find a member who can talk to both groups without getting a pie in the face, that's what you're looking for, essentially.
Huh. Okay. Well, Tim Mack, senior congressional correspondent for the Daily Beast, at Tim K. Mack on Twitter. When you find that person, let us know, because we're still looking for him. How, is that job even possible? Forget the person. Is the job doable, or are they torn? Is the Republican Party over? Are we going to get 2 parties, 3 parties? How do you unite these folks? 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. I'm Igor Volsky. We'll be back after this.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. This is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me. Help me. Your hands. Help me. Your hands. Back away. Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person.
Personhood, get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Pull them out. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Just get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy?
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else that we might be faced with. And that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
This is the Bill Press Show.
57 minutes after the 6 a.m. hour, and Peter Ogburn is asking me if I can make it without coffee.
Apparently, I screwed up the coffee. I made coffee this morning.
Too strong.
But this next batch is going to be so much stronger because clearly you need more energy.
I can hear my heart. Closer to the mic. Can you hear the beating of my heart? Tim McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy has me going.
Yeah.
Ben Carson has me going. I did jumping jacks and push-ups, for if you missed that. I did that this morning like a maniac to really pump myself up.
Oh.
And now I'm just too pumped. And with your strong coffee, it'll just set me over the edge.
Perfect.
I'll do the show standing up.
Perfect.
How about that?
That's good. It's like who needs a standing desk? We have a
standing mic
studio
set.
situation.
There you go. All right, we're going to come back in the 7 a.m. hour. Emily Atkin, politics reporter for some site called ThinkProgress, is going to talk to us what local school communities are doing to protect their children from gun violence. Congress isn't doing anything, so schools are stepping up. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Pistons fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen
A lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance right through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
my heroes, not yours. You probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Good morning, The Bill Press Show for this Friday, October 9th, 2015. I'm Igor Volsky of ThinkProgress, covering the new speakerless era of American politics as we enter the unknown. Who, when, why? So many questions, and we'll have all the answers for you, our listeners. If you're catching us on your local progressive radio station, on the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn app, using the Progressive Voices channel, on DirecTV, Dish TV, YouTube.com/TalkerTV. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you for being with us. The full Bill Press team here, of course, minus Bill Press. We have Peter Ogburn.
Hey, Igor.
James, oh my God, Benson.
Sure,
sorry, I'm
sure.
sorry.
No, it's quite all right.
I had
It's
it
quite
there.
all right.
It's
Jamie
all-
Benson.
Jamie Benson. It's the coffee. It's the coffee slowing the
Can
brain.
we talk
now.
about the coffee?
Peter made this coffee that is like drinking bullets, basically.
Here's the thing. I don't drink caffeine. I don't do
we
the caffeine
can tell.
thing.
Well, hold up. This has been like for 3 months. Let's not
Come on
pretend
now. It's been
you
longer
don't
than
drink
that.
Caffeine.
It's been a lot
You don't-
longer
you
than that.
Drink caffeine.
I don't do caffeine.
It's like, what is
so
this
it's
coffee?
been
What is
forever
this coffee?
since I made a cup of coffee. And Ray came in here, Ray Rogers, screening the coffee. She's like, Peter, what is the coffee you made? It's so strong. And now everybody's had the coffee now.
Well,
taste test. Igor has the coffee.
I mean, it made me forget Jamie's last name.
That's all you need to know.
That's
It'll
what the coffee
blow
is.
your mind is how good the coffee
The show will only get better from here, I
Yeah.
promise you. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Emily Atkin is politics reporter for ThinkProgress.org. She joins us now in studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Igor.
The one of the few...
Hey, Emily, did you have some of the coffee?
I had
How's the
about
coffee?
a quarter cup.
Yeah?
It's reminding me of home.
That's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
She's like sliding out of her chair.
We had to scrape her
under
off the ceiling
desk.
and for the segment.
No, I feel like I just ran 3 miles. My heart is like,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a marathon. The show's a marathon. We're going to talk with Emily about some of the things school districts are doing to protect their children from gun violence. It's both promising and problematic. We'll get into that, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. You know, Donald Trump has not exactly made a lot of friends when it comes to people he works with at his hotels, right? He's been sued by a couple of restaurateurs who have pulled out of his hotels because they don't want to work in Trump properties anymore. But this one might be the biggest blow of all. Julio Iglesias has said he will no longer perform in any Trump casinos. Now, this is sort of
Julio Iglesias is still performing?
What's his kid's name?
Enrique.
Enrique.
Bailamos.
Does he do that?
Enrique Iglesias, yeah, it's a big song in the 2000s.
Well, his father, Julio Iglesias.
Yeah, Julio, big star.
He makes all of his money by doing these casino shows, right? And he says he's not going to do any more in Trump casinos anymore because he can't stand the idea of Donald Trump. And he says the comments that he said about Mexican immigrants are totally
Julio
out of line.
Iglesias, one of the first Hispanic artists to cross over into the American market with his duet with Willie Nelson, some song I forget, but big star, big deal, big star.
Is he married to Gloria Estefan? Is that
No,
right?
that
was
is Emilio.
Miami
That is
Sound
Emilio.
Machine.
That is Sound Machine, yeah.
What was his name?
James.
Estefez, right?
Stay out of this.
Estefan. Emilio Estefan.
Emilio Estefan. I was thinking Emilio Estefez.
Oh, come on.
Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton just appeared at a Mark Anthony concert. I don't know if
See?
you heard about that.
It's a whole new thing.
Hillary Clinton's making waves in the Latin American.
Wow. Who's J-Lo supporting? So now J-Lo can't support Hillary. She's going to have to be for like Martin
Oh, that's
O'Malley.
right, because they're
divorced.
They're on the outs.
They're divorced.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You can now vote for who you want to put into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We got the nominees earlier this week. Who are some of the nominees? I'm just going to read you a couple of them. 9 Inch Nails are now eligible. NWA, The Smiths, Deep Purple, Janet Jackson, Chic, Steve Miller, Chicago, Chaka Khan, The Spinners, Cheap Trick, The Cars, The JBs, Los Lobos, and Yes are all eligible to be voted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The eligibility revolves around you have to have put out your first single or your first album in 1990 or earlier, and that's what makes you eligible to go into
Smoke on the water.
Wait, did you say NWA?
Fire in the sky.
Yeah, I got a real problem, by the way, with a lot of these because it's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They end up putting in, like, I love NWA, but, like, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, why isn't Deep Purple in it yet? It's taken this long?
I guess so.
I mean,
Deep
classic
Purple's trash.
band.
Come on. Come on.
Okay, bye.
What are you talking?
Bye-bye.
Brother,
Bye-bye
everyone loves Smoke on the Water. That song is terrible. Hush? That's a Deep Purple song I can get behind. That's a good song. That's a good tune.
Well, the GF Jacobs here in the YouTube chat likes Deep Purple too. Thank you. Thank you, GF Jacobs.
I'm sorry to hear that. LeBron James has been endorsing McDonald's for quite some time, but he is no longer going to endorse McD's. He is pulling out to represent and be the spokesperson for a fast casual pizza franchise called Blaze. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
You ever heard of this?
I think it's just like And Pizza.
Is that
Someone
like
brought it up to me the other
Is
day.
that Glenn Beck's new pizza shop? What is this? What is this garbage story?
Yeah. No, it's like Chipotle's, but for pizza. It's like And Pizza that we have here in D.C.
I'd go to Glenn Beck's Pizza Place.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So anyway, LeBron James no longer going to be a spokesperson for McDonald's. He's going to be jumping on with his pizza chain.
Thank God. I'm so happy I know that now. By the way. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Hey, well, he had taken some grief because he put his name on this some not so healthy food, right? And
we're gonna.
So he went to a pizza place?
Right. So much more healthy.
We're gonna turn to some serious news now. Turn the page. There is this morning reports of another school shooting, 1 dead, 3 wounded at Northern Arizona University. This, of course, just a little more than a week after a shooting in Oregon. These things, of course, have been happening with incredible frequency. The president has had to come out at least 10 times during his presidency addressing the nation and promising time and time again that he's going to pass and push for stricter gun laws. Congress has failed to act, and there's some talk now of the president pushing through additional executive actions. But in absence of that, we have schools acting on their own, doing what they can to protect their children, and that's the title of a piece on ThinkProgress by Emily Atkin called How Indiana is Tackling Mass Shootings Without Gun Control. And Emily, they really think that this can be even more effective than what Congress and the president is proposing. What are they doing?
Yeah, well, first of all, I wouldn't say that Indiana really thinks that it's going to be that great. There are some gun control groups, parent groups in Indiana that think it'll be great, and Indiana is sort of going along with it as of now. What it basically is a way to make the schools into what are kind of known as harder targets. Right now, schools are basically ground zero, for lack of a better word, for school shootings because they're soft targets. You know, they're people sitting in classrooms, unaware of their surroundings, unlocked doors, nobody's armed. It's a very easy place for somebody who wants to do something crazy to just come in and do whatever they want. So what they're testing out is sort of this pilot program where they put in a $400,000 to $600,000 security system in the school that amounts to very hard wood doors with ballistic glass, smoke canisters in the hallway. So if there's an active shooter, a smoke canister can detonate and sort of visually impair them. Every teacher wears a key fob around their neck so that if something does happen, they can press a button, their doors will automatically lock, a signal will go to the police station, and a officer will be immediately dispatched and an alarm system goes off.
You know, when I first read this story, by the way, it's called How Indiana is Tackling Mass Shootings Without Gun Control over at ThinkProgress.org. It struck me as very sad. It's very painful that this is what it has come to. I mean, when I went to school, when you went to school just a couple of years ago, we never thought about this kind of thing. This wasn't in the daily conversation. Clearly now it's become a focal point. I mean, we'll get into the reasons why later. But militarizing schools, having kids walk through metal detectors, having these kinds of fancy doors, having just that visual of a teacher wearing a special fob every day so that they could call police faster. I mean, I don't know. There's just something so painful. If anything symbolizes kind of the broken nature of this debate, the fact that we can't get anything real done, so schools have to take this into their own hands, it's this, right?
Yeah, totally. But here's sort of the alternative, right? I mean, in our presidential race, we've got candidates like Donald Trump and Ben Carson saying things like, you know what we should do to prevent school shootings is we should give guns to teachers. And that's a real solution being put forward by candidates running for the highest office in the United States, right? And what's more militarized than that? You know, what's worse, seeing a key fob that a child might not know what that's for, or seeing their teacher with like a gun holster on their side?
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of trying to create a middle ground between not doing anything on gun control and putting guns on the holsters of all our teachers and putting armed guards in school and something like that. It's just trying to do something, because clearly on the issue of gun control, I mean, nothing's happening.
And this is one school district in Indiana?
This is one school, and reportedly the state is going to make funds available via a grant for 10 more schools to have this technology next year. So.
And that's the other thing that really bothered me about this. By the way, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377 if you want to weigh in. It's the private nature of all of this, the fact that there are companies of this nature that are profiting from the inaction we see on Capitol Hill and elsewhere to make guns less readily available. And I wonder, I mean, I don't think you looked into this for the piece, but I wonder who these companies are donating to, what kind of business model they hope to preserve in you know, to ensure that there's no... Look, I think part of me believes you can do both things at once, right? You can pursue real gun safety laws, which aren't going to prevent every single school shooting, and you can take common sense measures to ensure that the actual school infrastructure is protected from this kind of thing. But I feel like there's a real possibility of this going overboard, of going too far, of militarizing our schools to a degree where it becomes troubling. And I just wonder, what does it do to the kids ultimately, who, you know, are kind of under, maybe in the back of their heads or somewhere, the sense that I'm always under some kind of threat that somebody might shoot me at any point, that I have to have, you know, security guards around me all the time.
That's
this
not
isn't
a bad point.
A safe space, right?
That's not a bad point, because in those schools, and I don't know if they do this in other schools, but in the Indiana school that I reported on in particular, they do active shooter drills. So kids know what to do in the event of an active shooter. It's like the new fire drill. No, it is the new fire drill. I mean, they do fire drills as well, but now they also do active shooter drills. And I remember when I was growing up and I was in elementary school, we did bomb drills. I don't know if you guys did that.
I don't think we did.
Where we would all go underneath a desk or something, and I watched one actually happen. I think the Today Show did a segment on this Indiana school, called it the safest school in America, and did an active shooter drill and had somebody with a fake gun and a hood going around the hallways and all the doors locked and the kids all went in one corner, and it was actually terrifying to watch.
That is an utterly terrifying image.
Well, Peter, as someone who did the drills during the Soviet days, just under your desk, you must feel that this is a similar situation. I would imagine.
I'm a little older than you. I'm not that old.
Okay. Oh, so you weren't there. Okay.
That's hurtful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's for the coffee. It's payback for the coffee is what you're getting.
How dare you? How dare you?
Now, is there a sense of how widespread these programs are? It's in this district in Indiana.
They're not widespread at all.
So they're not. It's not like there's a rash of.
No, and I think that what this situation kind of calls attention to, other than let's put $600,000 security systems in schools, is the fact that we don't have a national safety standard for schools. So something that's just required, like a very bare minimum safety prevention for active shooter situation. Obviously, a $400,000 to $600,000 system doesn't have to be a national standard. That would be a lot of money. But there is sort of no guideline on a federal level for public schools to have, a bare minimum safety requirement. And that I think is sort of problematic, just because when active shooter events do happen in schools, they take minutes. It's 5 minutes, and if you're not prepared, that's when the worst damage can be done. In those 5 minutes before a police officer can get there is when you're going to see just how bad the situation is going to be. So schools do have to have some sort of preparation in place, just because, we have another shooting this morning. Yeah. This is not going to stop.
Yeah, you can't do nothing. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. As we continue our conversation about what schools are doing, what schools aren't doing, who's paying for it, stay with us. This is The Bill Press Show.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. It's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TalkerTV. That's TAWKR TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, we continue with Emily Atkin, politics reporter for ThinkProgress.org, discussing what schools are doing to protect themselves from shootings. Ted from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Good morning.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. I'm a physician myself, and in fact, I trained and have worked at a hospital that you may remember about a year ago. A cardiologist and surgeon was killed by a man who came in with a gun who was a disgruntled patient.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the really, really bad part of this. The hospital, which is one of the two major Harvard teaching hospitals, response to this was to improve the speed of their drills. Now, here you want to hear some irony. The man was in the operating room and knife to skin 90 seconds after he was shot. The point being, in a different building, the point being, faster drills are not the answer. The obvious answer is to address the public health problem of...
Yeah, I mean, you can do, right, you address the public health problem of what? Guns, the availability of guns, the fact that you can purchase guns in many channels without any kind of background check of whether or not you should have a gun. That's the root of the problem. I mean, again, Emily, I don't have a problem with securing places and going after that area as well, but if you want to make this stop, you got to stop playing catch up. You got to go at where the problem is birthed.
Yeah, this is treating the symptom, not the cause.
Exactly.
That's exactly what.
Emily Atkin, politics reporter for ThinkProgress. Thank you so much. We'll be back after this with a competitive sausage eater.
This is The Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour, we're really going to switch gears here. Stop talking about Kevin McCarthy and guns and schools and safety and talk about food. Food is the thing I don't have this morning. I've just had the coffee. I've just had the water. I've eaten nothing. Man, I feel like I'm preparing for a competitive eating contest.
There you go.
Myself. And the person who would know about that, of course, is Joey Chestnut, world champion competitive eater, who's here in D.C. for the Ben's Chili Bowl eat-off this weekend. Joey, good morning.
Good morning. Good to be on with you.
I'm so excited to have you here. I've prepared so much for our interview together. You are the 8-time Nathan's Hot Dog Eater champion. Yes, 8 consecutive times. This 9th time, this chump Matt Stoney shows up, eats 62 hot dogs, and your streak is over. What happened?
I had a rough year. There's no excuses. I went in there pissed. I knew my training was going a little bit.
Yeah, your training. I've read about your training. It's pretty serious. Talk to us about that. You eat no solid food for 6 weeks, except for hot dogs. Preparing for this thing, kind of stretching your stomach out. Wow.
It gets pretty intense. It took a while to get through trial and error to figure out my body, and so I'll do a practice contest, and then I'll recover, and I'll some liquid amino acids and minimum protein supplements, but. Then after each contest, I'm pretty much fasting and trying to get ready for my next practice.
What'd you eat for breakfast this morning? Or what are you going to eat for breakfast this morning?
I just had some coffee and some daily nutrients.
And that's it.
Oh yeah, I want it. Tomorrow's going to be a really it's a capacity contest. So I want to be absolutely empty, make it super easy to digest almost 2 gallons of chili.
Wow. How did you fall into this? How does one become a competitive eater?
It's so weird. It was not my idea at all. My little brother knew I could eat more than anybody in the family, and he made me do my first contest. And the hardest part for me was just getting on stage and eating in front of people. Usually,
I get that.
Fast. Yeah. You eat fast when you're on your way to work or when you come home after partying, but never in a restaurant or in front of in front of a lot of people. So that was hard for me. But now I got that down, and I just have fun.
Okay, I'm looking here. According to Forbes, in 2009, you took home more than $150,000 in prize money. I mean, is this a full-time career?
Yeah, I think I was like 24 at the time. Now I'm doing a lot better still, but I've been really lucky.
Wow.
I was able to get my engineering degree and worked in construction management for a while, but the last 4 years I've been super lucky with sponsors, whether it's Nathan's Hot Dogs or Hooters or even Motorola. It's I've been really lucky, and I've been able to make it my full-time gig.
What won't you eat? Right? Like what don't you like?
Oh my God. There's a contest in June and in New Orleans, and I wanted to go so bad, but it was raw oysters, and I can't do something that I don't like the texture of.
I love raw oysters, but I can't imagine eating more. You know what I mean? Like that texture would get to me after a while.
Oh, it would come up. I wouldn't be able to control it. It's really rare.
Has it ever happened during a contest where it?
Never during a contest. There was once a crab cake contest in Delaware, and they let the crab cake sit out forever, and whatever kind of binder they used definitely went bad. And it was the only time I had to run off stage.
Oh no!
You know, these things sometimes come up, but I think the question we're all asking is: after you're done with the contest, with your, whether it be.
I thought you were going to ask if I was single.
Wow.
There you go.
I'm warming up here. What comes out though after one of these contests? I mean, how rough is it?
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Are you asking this
I want to
question?
know. This is the top
Jesus
question.
Christ.
I have some epic pictures.
Joey, be honest with us. What comes out after you eat 60 hot dogs? Describe it.
Nature's going to work, of course, naturally, but you're right. There's some picture-worthy ones and double pleasure, but no. At first, after a contest, I'm exhausted. My body's just putting all this energy into digesting this ridiculous amount of food, and then I'm thirsty, and then I'm going to wake up, and I'm going to wake up running, and wake up from my nap, and it works its way out naturally. It's just like anybody. Your body can adapt to do crazy things.
All right, well, since you...
After the chili eating contest, Jaws, I would suggest you put a roll of toilet paper in the freezer. You should be fine, though. You should be fine.
By the way...
Roll toilet paper and Pepto-Bismol in the fridge.
There you go.
Joey, you don't know this, but Peter here is an amateur competitive eater.
Here's the deal.
Well, I think everybody is since birth. I mean, it's one of the things everybody kind of thinks. They can push their limits, or they find a food that they think, I could eat so much of this.
When I was in college, I was flat broke, and I needed to rent a U-Haul to get my stuff back home. So I entered a chicken wing eating contest, and I won. I ate 77 wings in 10 minutes. What do you think about that?
Is that good? Can you do more?
You can probably anybody. It's awesome that you won. There's no. I mean, it's a great feeling winning an eating contest. I remember the first time I won an eating contest. It was like winning the Little League championship game when I was playing Little League. It's great. And,
Joe, you don't sound impressed with these how many wings?
77.
77. You're not impressed?
Look, this guy's the greatest competitive eater of all time.
How many,
oh, my God.
How many can you do? Joey, how many can you do? 10 minutes, you said?
Yeah.
In 10 minutes, 10 minutes, Joey, how many can you do? How many wings?
I've done over 200 in 10 minutes.
Woo.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Or I think it was like 7.5 pounds of meat.
I feel wholly inadequate now. Thank you.
No, it's all right. This is my job.
Yeah, I get it. But I've been proud of that stat for years.
All right, so tell me. Listen, we're gonna get into your love life in a second here, but tell me about like your typical week, your typical month. How many of these contests do you do?
Oh, during the summer, it's almost every weekend. I live the dream. Last weekend I was in, where was I? I was in New Jersey. New Jersey, then Toronto. So I'm just, every weekend is a different contest and a different city, and I just have fun right now.
So, and now, does this lifestyle make you popular with the ladies?
It really shouldn't, but it doesn't hurt usually.
Because you're a winner. They look at you like a winner.
That's exactly it. Women love winners, and they love that confidence, and they like a guy that can eat.
And do they come to these contests and kind of cheer you on? Does that get them going, the eating of the hot dogs?
It's usually, if they actually watch me eat, it doesn't do much for them. It would worry me if it did. But it happens when I'm at a bar and there's like 10 guys want to take pictures of me, and the girl's like, "Oh, who's that? He must be somebody special."
That would be an oddly specific kink for like a woman to like get turned on by watching you eat that much food.
Yeah, I would probably not want to be around her.
Now, you have a sausage eating competition coming up. What is it, later this month?
Oh yeah, in Tulsa.
Yeah. Do you like eating sausage? I mean, is that a food you typically eat?
I swallow the meat.
There you
go. Sausage. I do really well with. I can digest meat pretty easily. My body's built a really good tolerance.
That's what I want to ask you actually about, like the difference between, something like chili and something harder like a sausage that requires chewing, right? Like we've seen some people in the competitive eating circuit who they barely even chew their food.
Yeah, like can you just take the whole sausage, just slide in, the whole sausage just slides in, or how much chewing of the sausage?
I've practiced
do you break
quite a
through
bit.
the casing and bursts?
If I swallowed the whole thing, it wouldn't stack quite right, and it wouldn't digest very easily. So I'm chewing it. I'm just chewing it just enough, and getting it down quickly, making sure I'm efficient.
Yeah, you got to get the sausage down quickly. Wow. Okay. Well, listen, we learned a lot today.
This guy's the greatest competitive eater of all time.
It's been a pleasure. Joey Chestnut, world champion competitive eater. Catch him at Taste of DC, Ben's Chili Bowl, eating 2 pounds of chili, and then the sausage.
Two gallons.
And then the sausage later this month. Joey, a pleasure. Thank you so much. Good
3
luck.
3 p.m. tomorrow. It's going to be a blast.
Thanks, Jaws.
42 minutes after the hour of the Bill Press Show continues right after this.
Like politics? Then like The Bill Press Show on Facebook. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Maybe not as loud as Donald Trump, but he's a hell of a lot smarter. This is your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election, The Bill Press Show.
That applies to you, too.
Thank you, not just Bill. 46 minutes after the hour, still recovering from our interview with competitive sausage eater Joey Chestnut. But we're going to shift gears a bit, come back to the big speakerless moment in politics we're having. If there's one benefit to this, it's that it takes us off Trump. And when Trump isn't in the news, Trump inserts himself in the news. Because I don't know if you knew this, but the man responsible for McCarthy stepping down is one Donald J. Trump.
You know, Kevin McCarthy is out. You know that, right? And they're giving me a lot of credit for that because I said you really need somebody very, very tough and very smart. You know, smart goes with tough, not just tough. I know tough people. They're not smart. That's the worst.
You know, first of all, that's BS. I heard when Kevin McCarthy, before the Benghazi comments, I heard Donald Trump on some show being asked if he supports McCarthy. And he gave this rambling answer about how you need to be tough. So, no, Trump is not responsible. But
no, not even a little bit.
Trump is upset that he's not getting the media coverage, that he's not getting the attention, that no one's really that focused on him anymore. So he's up to his same old Trump antics. Earlier this week, he delivered a case of Trump water to Marco Rubio. Nobody cared. So yesterday, he did this.
Is this a setup? Did I ever meet you before?
This is a Hispanic woman running up to Trump.
I vote for Mr. Trump. We vote for Mr. Trump. Yes!
Yeah. So people like us would play it, and we did. The latest Trump antics. And people are getting tired, though. Thank God.
I don't know if people are getting tired. I really don't, Igor. I know that's the new narrative, but we're getting tired of it. And a lot of people inside the Beltway are getting tired of it. I really do think that Trump has staying power. I'm not saying... I know. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, right? But I won't be as wrong as the people who said that he was going to go nowhere when he got into the race. Every single thing that Trump does moves, right? Like in one way or the other. So at least he's still there. The bringing the Mexican woman on stage... which was clearly a stunt, was dumb, and I think it was in poor taste, and I think that it painted a picture that he wanted it to paint that is not exactly flattering to some of the voters here in this country.
But
it moved.
You know, it's like a TV show when you have the same storyline over and over again. At first it gets great, huge, big ratings, but if the character doesn't change, if it's the same narrative throughout episode after episode, week after week, you get tired. I mean, how much longer can we enjoy and be entertained by Trump, being Trump, with the bluster, with the bragging? I mean, aren't we kind of tired of this character? Don't we want somebody else like Carly or Ben?
This is not the first time I've made this comparison, but I see a lot of similarities between Donald Trump and Howard Stern. And Howard Stern... Hey now. Howard Stern... you could argue that he has some, he has certain elements that will always be the same of his show, but why do people listen to Howard Stern? They want to see what he's going to say next. And at this next debate, I can't wait to see what Trump says next.
Really? Still?
Really. But because that doesn't mean I'm going to vote for him or even come anywhere close to voting for him. But I find the entertainment value still there because.
But
who knows what he's going to say? He's a live wire.
The difference between him and Howard, I mean, there's many, but in your comparison, Howard evolves, right? Howard started as a lot broier, let's just say, than he is today. You know, Ellen just did his show recently, and she said she was so fearful in the beginning of her career that he would kind of push her out of the closet and out her. And now she's there, 15 years later, really excited to do his program because he's a different person than who he was.
That is a good
Trump's
point.
the same thing. He was when he first popped on the scene, in the 70s, it's always been me, Trump, brand. But, to his credit, he's a showman.
Yeah.
And if anybody knows that you get tired of the same old characters time and time again, it's Trump. Although, he was on season 17 of The Apprentice. I don't know who was still watching that thing. It was also the same thing over and over again. But he's going to have to step it up. He's now in competition with Ben Carson, who is raising some $20 million, with Carly Fiorina, who can also zing with the best of them. And I think in the next debate, I'm kind of excited to say it, but if we just hear the same old, he's inexperienced, he's low energy, you're going to get tired of it. He needs some new material. The good news is that he's becoming a more traditional candidate. He has some policies that he can actually talk about. He has a whole tax cut plan. He has that immigration plan. He's going to do a couple of others. He's going to do a health care plan soon. So he can kind of maybe get into the details of things. And it is fun for me as someone who kind of geeks out on the policy stuff to hear this showman talk about not just himself, not how much money he has, not how great he is, but about the actual policy details. Because, say what you want, he is bringing those ideas, those kind of very traditional Republican ideas, to a very big audience who would not be paying attention if Jeb Bush was doing it or Paul Ryan was doing it, but are paying attention and are caring and are maybe Googling this stuff because it comes out of the mouth of Donald Trump.
Yeah, those are all very, very good points.
So,
I think that there is a level of maturity that's lacking and progression, and we'll see where it takes him.
By the way, before we take the break, I have to show this shirt we have here. McBainer, you have here McCarthy in orange tint holding a glass of wine, which, of course, John Boehner drinks all the time. But yesterday was a sad day. Yeah, sad. Lots of glasses of wine yesterday from John Boehner because all the tears he must have spilled after finding out that it's very possible that he might have to be Speaker for a little longer. Oy vey. 866-557-7377. 866-55-PRESS. We're going to be back right after this.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
two laugh at the same thing.
This is the Bill Press Show.
57 minutes after the hour, and some sad news to report as we close out our second hour of the show. Still a developing situation, but 1 killed, 3 injured in a shooting at Northern Arizona University. It's like the 47th school shooting this year. The question, of course, will anything be done? When? And who will do it? We're going to be joined by Tim Daly, Director for Campaigns, Guns and Crime at American Progress, to discuss if and how the president can act without the will of Congress, and talk about Hillary Clinton's proposal, a bold plan to take on gun crime, which, Peter, I haven't seen a prominent kind of mainstream major party candidate lay out a specific detailed plan in a campaign like this. I don't think ever.
No, never.
But it's becoming a problem. Policymakers are hopefully going to, be focused on it, do something about it. Tim Daly, Director for Campaigns, Guns and Crime at American Progress, the Center for American Progress, is going to get into all of the details of that in the 8 a.m. hour. Stay with us. I'm Igor Volsky.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together. And it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this. Because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, we wake up this morning to a speakerless house and tragically another school shooting. Number 47, 1 dead, 3 injured. As this developing story unfolds, we'll be on top of it here on the Bill Press Show. Good morning. I'm Igor Volsky filling in for Bill Press here with the entire team. Peter Ogburn.
Hey, Igor.
Jamie Benson, Ray Rogers, and Monty Kessler.
Kessler?
No, I can't do it every time. Running our video stream if you're watching us on youtube.com/TalkerTV, on the iHeartRadio app, on the TuneIn app using the Progressive Voices channel, or, of course, on your favorite progressive radio station. Good morning. Welcome aboard. In studio, we have Tim Daly. He's my colleague over at the Center for American Progress and the director for campaigns, guns, and crime. And Tim, I'm so happy you're here. We can discuss this latest shooting and everything that lawmakers are now maybe more seriously considering to make sure that these things stop. We're going to get into all of those details, but first, we have this.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Okay, so we go to Taylor Lake Shores in Lakeview, which is in Texas.
There. Yes.
There's a 69-year-old man. He and his wife, they had a bit of an argument. They had a fight. It happens. It happens. So she kicked him out of the house. But he says, this is my house. I'm not leaving. So he has started camping on the front yard, in a tent in front of the house, and she wouldn't let him back in. So now he's been staying there for several weeks now. So people are coming to visit him and bring him food, and the police are saying, you have got to figure this out because it's becoming a problem. She's still mad at him, by the way. She put up a sign in front of where he's living that says, please don't give him food. She's so mad at this guy. She says, if you want to feed him, take him to your house. And if you want to, you can keep him at your house. Thank you for the sympathy, but don't bring anything to this property. This is my property.
Well, this sounds very cost-effective to me on the part of the couple. She should be thankful he's not wasting their money in a hotel.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. This is a new thing. I think I'm anti this. CNN, when they're doing these debates, they've been having national anthems before the debates.
I hate that too.
Right?
Yeah.
They did it this last one. Someone sang the national anthem.
Yeah.
So they're going to have someone sing the national anthem on Tuesday before the Democratic debate in Las Vegas. You know who it's going to be?
Sheryl Crow.
Yeah.
Yeah, big vocalist Sheryl Crow.
Wait, you stealing my story for it.
Yeah, well, I know. I know things. Yeah. What else you got? What else you got, Peter?
I got nothing.
Well, anyway, but the point here is CNN is hiring talent to perform at the debates. I don't think I like this. I think I'm against this.
Because the anthem was already enough, right? They did the anthem at the last debate.
Yeah,
and
just chill.
And you have an entertainer. You have Trump. You don't need Sheryl Crow.
I mean, like,
make
since
him
when
sing.
It's like a sporting event now. We got to perform before the actual thing.
Are we doing a third story?
Yeah, we might as well. I mean, Eagle knows what I'm going to do anyway. We said farewell yesterday to Paul Prudhomme. Paul Prudhomme, celebrity chef, maybe the first celebrity chef here in America, died at 75. He brought Cajun cooking to the world. In fact, he was so popular at one point with his blackened redfish recipe, they had to completely refigure how to stock redfish in Louisiana because people were eating it too much. So he passed away at the age of 75. I guess when you're doing your cooking show from the seat of your rascal, which is what he was doing, I'm not joking, it's not a good sign. So
now it's tremendous. He's a big name. Before him, it was thought you need a French chef for a fine dining experience.
That's right.
And he proved all that wrong.
Great cookbooks, great restaurant that's still there, K. Paul's in New Orleans. So, yeah, I used to watch Paul Prudhomme all the time. I love Paul Prudhomme.
Learned all your culinary tricks from him.
I learned a lot of them, yeah. Sure, yeah.
Still waiting for that dinner invitation at the Ogburns for some delicious Cajun-inspired food, but maybe next week. I don't know. All right, 10 minutes after the hour, Tim Daly is the Director for Campaigns, Guns, and Crime at the Center for American Progress. Tim, another school shooting, number 47, as we wake up this morning. Do you feel like there's now a greater sense of urgency? After Newtown in 2013, there was this hope, 20 children dead, 6 faculty members. Maybe we can get something done. But it feels to me, and maybe this is the copycat effect here, that we've been having this drip, drip, drip of shootings in a lot closer together than we have in the past.
Absolutely right. The number of mass shootings since Newtown is much, much higher than we've ever seen before. And the American people are just fed up about it. You know, over the summer we had Charleston, we had a shooting at a movie theater, we had a shooting at a military base, and it seemed like we had a couple of weeks off. And all of a sudden we come back and we have this situation where all of a sudden we have a community college come under attack by someone where you know this person probably shouldn't have had firearms to begin with, and people are just besides themselves. How can we, since December of 2012, have done literally nothing? You know, since that time, we've had more than 88,000 people who have been murdered by guns, and Congress has done zero. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And I was in California this past week, and people who are Republicans, people who are gun owners, people who usually say, yeah, maybe the NRA has a point on this or a point on that, they say to themselves, how have we literally done nothing?
You know, and we've had loose gun laws for a long, long time. Is there some reason we can point to about why they're happening with such greater frequency now?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the president has said it best himself. If you compare what's happening in the United States to other countries, the difference is the access to guns, the access to firearms. And if you compare the number of episodes that we have here to everywhere else, it's not even close. And because there are so many more firearms in the stream of commerce that are showing up in people's houses, in the place for the shooter that we just talked about in Oregon, I mean, he had an arsenal.
14 guns.
He had 14 guns in one household. And that's the reason why you're starting to see more and more of these episodes. It's because it's becoming way too easy for dangerous people and for dangerous hands to have access to firearms. And what's happening is they're now using them to go to a community college. They're using them. There was an episode last week where an 11-year-old and another 8-year-old were discussing their dogs, and one child was upset with the other, so they went and got the firearm that was in their house and shot the other child. These things are happening because of the access to firearms has become way too easy for all people.
And it's becoming a greater part of the political conversation. Absolutely. We saw this week Hillary Clinton, probably the Democratic nominee, or certainly the Democratic frontrunner for the presidential race, put out a fairly detailed gun proposal, the likes I haven't seen from a major party candidate, because for a long time, Democrats were so afraid to touch the gun issue. Mm-hmm. Republicans are so effective in rallying the so-called NRA base. Why do you think it has finally become politically possible for Democrats to talk about guns, to talk about gun safety restrictions?
Well, in the last couple of years especially, people have started to say, you know what, guns is an issue that I care about and the reason why I'm going to vote for the candidate that I'm voting for. Now, everybody always says, oh, God, in 1994, the Democrats passed this crime bill, and then the Democrats lost the majority because the NRA held all of these people accountable. It's probably a half-truth, and over the last 20 years, the reality has been blown way out of proportion to the fact that people have thought that the politics of guns were impossible to navigate. Fast forward now to post-December 2012, post-Newtown, and voters have said, you know what, I don't care about the NRA. I don't care about the gun lobby. What I care about is what are you going to do about guns? And Democrats have embraced that. Democrats have said, you know what? Gun sense voters, and there are now millions of them, are as powerful as the gun lobby. And therefore, we should feel emboldened to stand up to the gun lobby and offer up our own proposals. And that's why you saw Hillary Clinton come out with a plan just last week that was as ambitious of a plan that we have seen from a presidential candidate perhaps ever.
Let's get into those details. She has 2 different tracks. The legislative track, talk about that, and then also her executive actions that she promises to take if Congress fails to act.
Yeah, so, there are a couple of things. Number one, she says we need to close the background checks loophole, right? Right now, upwards of 40% of gun sales happen in this country with no questions asked, no background check. That would be akin to you have 10 people who go to the airport. 6 of them go through security. 4 of them, they said, TSA, you could just come right around here. You can just jump on the plane. No questions asked.
And these are online sales and private
online sales, gun shows, me selling a gun to you. These have no questions asked. She suggests, or she's urging, that Congress pass legislation to close this background check loophole to require that any of these gun sales be subject to a background check.
And it's something the president pushed in the wake of Newtown.
Absolutely. It's something that the Congress failed to act on, but something that the president pushed very hard in 2013.
And this is the part of the plan that got a lot of attention. Her promise that she's going to use administrative actions and redefine what a federally licensed gun seller looks like, so that if you're a private seller who sells, a lot of guns, 50 guns, you're then qualify as a federally licensed dealer, and you have to then subject your customer to a background check. This is something the president, who issued 23 executive orders in the aftermath of Newtown, reportedly considered, but then kind of put on the back burner. Hillary Clinton is saying, I'm going to get this done.
Yeah, so the Congress has legislation that says all sales subject to background checks. Say that fails, Hillary Clinton came out and said, okay, well, who exactly should be subject to a background check requirement now? And what the law says is that if you're engaged in the business of selling firearms, then you should become a licensed federally dealer, right? And because you're as FFL, as they're called, you would have to conduct a background check. So the premise of her position on this executive action is then, what is the definition of engaged in the business?
Yeah.
And well, what does that mean? A lot of people think that means, okay, if you sell 100 guns or 200 guns, if you're a store, a brick and mortar store, clearly you're engaged in the business. But the law, when it was written decades ago, didn't take into account the person who was going onto armslist.com, selling 20 firearms a month, by the way. So over time, perhaps they're selling as many guns as a brick and mortar store. But under the current definition of the law of engaged in the business, they're not considered to be an FFL. What Hillary Clinton says is this: let's look back at that definition of engaged in the business. Let's make sure it covers somebody who is, in fact, selling guns to make a living. Let's make sure that those people are subject to the same laws as a brick and mortar store, a mom and pop store, and those.
But that's the difficulty, right? How do you define someone who's engaged in the business? How many guns do they have to sell? Is it 20 a month? Is it less? Is it more? That's one of the reasons the Obama administration said, can we just pick an arbitrary number and stick with it? Is this going to hold up legally?
You're absolutely right, and I'm sure our listeners from Gun Owners of America and the NRA are already teeing up their emails to whip up their members to say just that. But what we would say,
I am their spokesman.
Yes, yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
But what we and what Hillary Clinton and what other supporters of this idea will say is, hey, listen, this concept of engage in the business is not some brand new fairy tale idea we just drew up in the middle of the night. This concept of engage in the business is a legal term of art that is used across many other sectors of the economy. And every state in the country has to use a form of engaged in the business to determine their own sales tax laws, for example, right? How does a tax collector in Kentucky figure out who they're supposed to collect sales tax from in terms of these small stores or people that are operating? What do? They apply a concept called engaged in the business. So yes, while it is difficult to say that you need to come up with the exact definition as it relates to firearms, what we're talking about is not something that was made up out of whole cloth. It is a legal concept that has been used and can be used effectively and has been demonstrated so.
And is there a sense of how many people this is going to catch? I mean, how big of a deal is this? How many more background checks are we going to conduct if that definition has changed?
That's part of the million-dollar question, because when we say between 20 and 40% of gun sales are outside of the background check system, that is our best guess. And part of the reason why it's our best guess is because the NRA and the gun lobby has effectively shut down all opportunities to get the data to understand. And so what we think is that this expansion of the definition will get a vast majority of that 20, 30% window, we think, but we don't know for certain.
And that's why the push is also to have a more comprehensive bill. And in a way, piecemeal, do this and that, and then hopefully you have all sales then, except for the very maybe private sale between just families. Are those the exclusions that...
Yeah, I mean, somebody, it depends on the bill, right?
Yeah.
But generally speaking, family transfers, me, giving my firearm that I've had in my family for 100 years to my son, those types of sales have never been thought to be included in a proposal like that.
What are the other executive actions that Hillary is willing to take besides this one? There was one with now the domestic violence stalkers. Is that a legislative push? It
would be a legislative push, but there's also executive actions that she could take on this too. But there is an issue right now where if you look at who are these dangerous people that should not have access to guns, clearly domestic abusers are people who should not have access to guns. But the problem is there are loopholes in the law. Right now, the law says if you have a restraining order against your spouse, you become a prohibited purchaser. When the law was written years and years ago, it didn't contemplate the fact that more and more people now are not getting married. They're living with their dating partner. They're living with their intimate partner, yet they're not married. So there's a loophole about dating partners, for example. There's a loophole about stalkers, for example. There needs to be legislation that prohibits these people specifically to ensure that they don't get access to guns.
Now, Democrats came out yesterday, Ron Wyden, saying that, it's time for us to really do something about this, that maybe we can have a new push on this issue. Here he is.
Today, we call on Americans from Roseburg to Blacksburg to speak with one voice. End the complacency. It's time to take action against gun violence.
But can anything really be done politically? Does Congress have the will? Do lawmakers turn on the TV, see a shooting like this, and say no more? What is it going to take? Tim Daly, he's the Director for Campaigns, Guns, and Crime at the Center for American Progress. He's going to stick right here, answer those questions, plus your calls, 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. I'm Igor Volsky of ThinkProgress. We'll be back after this.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 27 minutes after the hour, we continue with Tim Daly, Director for Campaigns, Guns, and Crime at the Center for American Progress. Tim, we've discussed the policy that Democrats are embracing, but there's also the politics of it all. Hillary Clinton is leading on this issue actively, partly because her opponent for the Democratic nomination, Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont, has had a, questionable record on gun safety. Talk about that. And then is there an effort then underway as Democrats try to breathe new life into this issue to also move Bernie towards supporting gun safety laws that he's opposed in the past?
Absolutely. You're 100% correct. Guns is becoming one of the key issues in the Democratic presidential primary because there are some modest differences between all of the candidates. Actually, a couple months ago, Martin O'Malley was the first to come out with a very ambitious plan.
Gun registry, right?
Absolutely. And it was about as left as it can be in terms of the progressive nature of his gun plan. Then Hillary Clinton came out with her plan, and that was not by mistake. She came out with her plan because that she knew that she was much more progressive on guns than, in fact, Bernie Sanders' congressional record has been.
Yeah.
Now, for Senator Sanders, he represents a gun-owning state. He represents the state of Vermont. And over time, he's had a C record, a D record with the NRA. Now, that's not an A record with the NRA.
We want him to get
but it's not an F record with the NRA either.
All right, Tim Daly, Director for Campaigns, Guns, and Crime at the Center for American Progress. Thank you. We'll be back after this.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that crimadvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California!
Boo, go home. Wow, crimadvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
crimadvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour, The Bill Press Show for this Friday, October 9th, 2015. I'm Igor Volsky, filling in for Bill Press as we switch gears to a topic that may not be on the very front of our minds this news week, but is certainly has been the catalyst for a lot of change in this country, the catalyst for change in Washington in the highest levels of power. We went in this country from a president who said that marriage should be between one man and a woman because he's a Christian, and from a Justice Department who defended the Defense of Marriage Act by arguing that children are best raised in a house with one mother and one father, to a president who embraces marriage equality, and to a presidential candidate who promises all kinds of executive action to ensure that gays and lesbians are treated fairly under the law. That shift is documented in a new book by Kerry Eleveld called Don't Tell Me to Wait: How the Fight for Gay Rights Changed America and Transformed Obama's Presidency. Kerry joins me now on the phone. Kerry, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me, Igor.
This, by the way,
Kerry, I'm so glad we got Kerry on the phone.
Is that Peter?
Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah. Hey, Peter. I wish I was there with you, buddy.
Totally.
Kerry, this is a tremendous read. And, you know, for me, who's been part of aspects of this evolution of this story. It's really like opening up a history book and reliving really a different time period, because I think for a lot of people, particularly young people, it's hard to imagine, or getting harder to imagine, a time when Democratic presidential candidates spewed the kind of rhetoric that Obama did back in 2008, and you review it all so beautifully in your book. Let me ask you, as you looked back at this entire saga, which you, of course, covered so brilliantly for The Advocate, what surprised you the most? What did you see differently capturing this history?
I honestly, one of the linchpins in my book, of course, is the effort to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and the successful effort to do that. And I think, when you look back, it's just amazing how afraid Democrats on the Hill, White House aides were of doing that, what lobbyists were, advocacy groups were. I mean, there was just this cloud of conventional wisdom over the Capitol Hill that this was going to be a really heavy lift. And it was a heavy lift on Capitol Hill. But, Democrats were afraid of taking that vote because they thought, oh, well, this is going to come back and haunt them in the next election. And, frankly, it was pushed past the midterms, in part for that reason. The vote was pushed past the midterms in 2010.
And you remember when that vote came down to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which now is like an afterthought. Of course, that had to go. Back then, right. I mean, you and I talked about this. There were advocates who had worked on this issue for years, Kerry, who said, you know what, maybe we shouldn't put it in the lame duck session. Maybe we should wait. Maybe the new Congress will give us more of an opportunity. As you point out, activists on this issue thought this is too much. This is going to cost the president. This is going to hurt kind of the overall progressive cause. And boy, were they wrong.
Yeah, completely wrong. And in fact, Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal ended up being just a pristine progressive win. In other words, progressives across the board at the time were happy with it. And they were not entirely happy with, for instance, health care reform, which, we know now has, reduced the uninsured by millions.
17 million.
17 million. You are much more the expert on that than I am. But at the time, progressives weren't entirely happy with that win. They wanted a public option. They wanted single payer. And the same thing can be said of the stimulus package. It was nearly $800 billion. People argued about whether that was too big or too small. A lot of progressive economists thought it was too small. And it took a long time before that turned into, helping the economy in a way that Democrats could actually argue that this had been a good thing. It had been a success. So Don't Ask, Don't Tell reaped immediate rewards for the president and the Democrats in terms of, in getting a lot of goodwill from the progressive base and having absolutely no backlash whatsoever in terms of, Democrats losing seats or whatever. There was never a single attack ad that I could find that was run against someone who voted to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. No one lost their seat on that basis. So, it was an overall win.
And it didn't just happen. It was an army of activists who pushed the president, who pushed Congress to ensure that he prioritized it. It's one thing to say it in a campaign, but to actually do it was, in some case, a lift for the president. Talk about those people who behind the scenes made sure that the president kept his campaign rhetoric and actually acted on this issue and didn't just wait for when the golden time, for when it was perfectly right to go ahead and repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell and marriage and everything else.
Well, right. And so I really think, that there were a cast of characters who were involved in that, in repeal. There's the White House and the president himself, the White House aides. There's, of course, Capitol Hill lawmakers. There were a few real heroes on Don't Ask, Don't Tell on Capitol Hill. There were the inside players the inside advocacy players like, Winnie Stackelberg at the Center for American Progress and Allison Hurwitz at the Human Rights Campaign, who when the time came really did their job on Capitol Hill. But, they were not the ones who pushed the envelope here. They were not the ones, I think, who really stoked the sense of urgency and the sense that this was going to be a real problem for the administration and the White House if they did not get this done. That sense of urgency really came from the grassroots activists who did things like put together, a 200,000 person strong National Equality March in October of 2009, and then repeatedly protested the White House, chained themselves to the White House gates, and then, shouted down the president at various fundraisers and things like that. I mean, those guys really, the activists, it really got under the skin of the president himself. I mean, it was just an amazing testimony to how average citizens can actually make a difference, as you said at the top, at the highest levels of government. And that was really extraordinary to me. I mean, that was really the reason I wrote the book, because there were two reasons. I had witnessed something extraordinary in terms of how much change had happened in such a short amount of time, but then also the average citizens actually affected the White House, actually, helped change the conversation inside the White House about what was going on there. And they were really, I sometimes say, the grassroots activists were sort of the special sauce, right? They made the difference. So, and one thing, just to note, Igor, when you look back, I've been talking about this to different audiences, and just to highlight what an amazing win that was, I say, look at all the other progressive constituencies who had major priorities. Labor had the Employee Free Choice Act they wanted to get through in the first 2 years. Immigration had immigration reform in the DREAM Act. The environmental movement had cap and trade. None of those priorities got through. And reproductive rights actually got blindsided by the compromise that was in the abortion compromise that was in healthcare reform. So if you look at all the other progressive constituencies, none of them got their priorities, and one even suffered a setback. And when you look at it in terms of that, it's really an amazing feat.
Yeah, Kerry Eleveld, author of Don't Tell Me to Wait, How the Fight for Gay Rights Changed America and Transformed Obama's Presidency. Kerry, when we come back, I want you to talk about the lessons from the activism, from the grassroots push. What set apart this movement from others, from some of the failures you mentioned? And most importantly, what can some of those other progressive campaigns learn from the successes of Marriage, of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, of DOMA? 42 minutes after the hour. We'll be right back with Kerry Eleveld here on The Bill Press Show.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Hey, Free Speech TV world, it's Mama and the Mooks here at the Stephanie Miller Show.
Hello. Good morning.
You know, Seinfeld was about nothing. I think the Stephanie Miller Show is about everything.
A little bit
it?
everything.
Yeah, a
It's
little bit.
kind of everything like thrown into a blender and we hit frappe.
Right.
With wine poured in.
Right. Senators, fart jokes, politics, pop culture, entertainment.
Drinking.
Drinking. Random stray thoughts. It's what all the hip kids are talking about.
Yep.
We have the smartest, funniest people in the country on this show, do we not?
We absolutely do.
Right?
And our sexy liberal army of callers call in every day to tell us all about it.
There you go. And some right-wingers that Travis particularly enjoys talking to.
They're my favorites.
Okay. You can watch us every weekday from 9 to noon Eastern or 6 to 9 Pacific, which is really early. But we still, we try to, we're still pulling in people like Rob Reiner, Lily Tomlin, Frangela, you name it. You can only get it here at the Stephanie Miller Show. Mama, Mooks, fancy celebrities.
And everything.
And fart jokes.
Free Speech TV.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TalkerTV. That's TAWKR TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 46 minutes after the hour, we continue with Kerry Eleveld, author of Don't Tell Me to Wait, How the Fight for Gay Rights Changed America and Transformed Obama's Presidency. Kerry, if you were advising the immigration movement, the guns movement, what is the lesson they should take away from the gay rights movement?
Well, I'm so glad you asked this question because I hope this book can serve as a toolkit or a roadmap to other progressive movements, right? And not all of the progressive movements are completely analogous across the line. So some have, some have positives and strengths in some areas, and some have strengths in other areas. Quickly, a lot of these movements have picked up lessons from this. Looked back at the first 2 years of the administration and said, "Hey, what can we do that they were doing?" And that is true, especially I think of labor and the environmental movement, and the environmental movement in particular. They had a strong grassroots movement, out in the states, and there's a lot of local energy in the environmental climate change movement, but it hadn't been directed directly at the White House in the sense that the LGBT movement had done it. And what you saw in 2011 and 2012 is that they ramped up those efforts to directly pressure the president. They held several really incredible protests right at the White House. One included a human chain that was formed, 3 to 5 people deep, as a ring around the White House. I mean, and as a result of that, Keystone XL, the decision on building the Keystone XL pipeline, got delayed and delayed and delayed. And of course, over time, the president has gotten more aggressive and more aggressive on reducing carbon emissions. So, that's the bill they wanted, and he's tried to do most of it through executive action. If you look at immigration, and not immigration reform necessarily, but the DREAM Act actually had grassroots activists who were staging very similar protests with just as much energy, just as much fervor as the LGBT activists were. The grassroots part of the DREAM Act movement was amazing, even in the first 2 years of the administration. What was interesting is I think through my reporting, I found sort of that when it got to to Capitol Hill and they finally got a vote, they didn't have quite the inside game that the LGBT movement did. So we had a handful of players there that had very long-standing relationships with lawmakers. And at that point, I think that was probably the difference between the DREAM Act getting through and don't ask, don't tell repeal getting through. But yeah, go ahead.
And well, very, very quickly, you know, obviously there's been a lot of successes, but the fight certainly isn't over. There's no federal protections for folks. You know, a lot of people still in the South, particularly, are in the closet in very large numbers. In other words, the fight's not over. How do we harness these kinds of victories, all the goodwill we now see politically and in the media, to push forward with the LGBT movement?
Well, gee, I wish I had the prescriptive for that. But what I will say is that what I'm noting now in terms of the campaign, especially on the Democratic side, is that I feel like there's a sense of complacency or non-directedness somehow among the LGBT movement. It seems like we've gotten some wins, and I'm not seeing the same energy that I saw the first 2 years in the administration, whereas we've seen a lot of energy and a lot of pressure on, for instance, Hillary Clinton, from the environmental movement, the climate change movement, from the immigration activists, especially the DREAM activists. And she has, you know, that has helped her, you know, really come out. She came out very aggressively on DREAM Act and Obama's executive orders. And she, of course, a couple weeks ago came out against the Keystone XL pipeline. I'm not seeing the same thing from the LGBT movement right now, and you know, that stuff can't be left up to the Human Rights Campaign. They're not going to be the quote unquote special sauce, right?
And that's really, that's really the great lesson here, is that, you know, progressive Democratic candidates may have good rhetoric and they may want to do the right thing, but they're not going to do it on their own. You have to push them into it.
Right, exactly. The lesson of, you've got to protest your friends sometimes. You've got to hold them accountable. And that was incredibly unusual. Remember when grassroots activists for LGBT movement first started protesting the president, first staged the National Equality March, you know, first got angry. This was in between June and October of 2009. And all of the progressive establishment organizations in Washington were still counseling patients at that point, including the Human Rights Campaign. So it was very unusual to have this constituency that was such a part of the progressive mix to go right after a Democratic president. And that really happened more quickly for us because of Proposition 8 passing in California in the 2008 election, and then also I think Obama picking Rick Warren to be the inaugural speaker and bless his leadership moving forward. And those two things, I think, just really, really got the LGBT activists going and changed the dynamic from, we need to give this guy time, to, I don't care what, I want it now.
You know, you detail in the book that the president wasn't exactly thrilled that progressive activists, LGBT activists, were holding him to account on this issue. But I'm betting that a small part of him is happy. It pushed him. He did it sooner than he wanted to. And you know what? What a legacy he has now. Kerry Eleveld, the author of Don't Tell Me to Wait, How the Fight for Gay Rights Changed America and Transformed Obama's Presidency. A very good read. Go out and get it. Kerry, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Igor.
Quick break. We're back right after this.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, The decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 56 minutes after the hour as we close up another great Bill Press show on a news-filled week. Hillary Clinton with a big guns plan, flipping on the TPP, which we didn't even mention. And of course, the big story of the week, Kevin McCarthy, the presumed Speaker of the House of Representatives, is out. Who's in? Maybe we'll find out next week. I want to thank all of my guests, Tim Mack of the Daily Beast, Emily Atkin of ThinkProgress, Joey Chestnut,
Jaws,
world champion competitive eater. Catch him at Ben's Chili Bowl this weekend doing a 2 pound, no, not 2 pounds,
gallons. 2 gallons of chili at the Taste of DC
2 gallons
this weekend.
of chili. Tim Daly, who's at the Center for American Progress, talked to us about guns. And Kerry Eleveld, she's the author of Don't Tell Me to Wait, How the Fight for LGBT Rights Transformed America and Obama's Presidency, a book I'm like a third through. And
Nice.
It's fascinating.
It's
and I
really good.
haven't even gotten to the part where I'm in.
You're in it, right?
Yeah, I'm in
I
it.
have
There's
to
my
say,
stories in it.
applause to you for not mentioning that to the author when we had her on.
Well, I thought it was a little
self-congratulatory.
a little showy.
Yeah,
But
we'll
I think
save
on
that
this
for
on this end note,
Yeah.
for the true fans who stick all the way through, they should know.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
should
I
know.
think
It's like
that's
page
great.
156. It's like 156.
That's great.
Yeah.
If you see
Check it
Igor
out.
and you have Kerry's book, he'll sign that page
Yeah, that's
for you.
right. I'll sign the
You
page. I'll
should
sign the whole
that page.
thing.
Yeah.
I'll sign the whole thing. No problem. She's not here. I am. All right. Well, thanks so much. Have a good weekend. Bill Press Show. We'll see you back here on Monday. Until then, bye-bye.
This is the Bill Press Show.